So whatever fan commented and asked that we talk about Halloween, this is for you. Give us a
Push the applause.
kiss.
Push the applause button. I knew it. I was like, he's gonna hit the wrong button for sure.
I turned the volume down because of this.
Yep.
Well done, fan. This is for you.
You want to go first? Or you want me to go first?
You go first.
Okay. So Halloween was, fortunately, I think I got to have Halloween as a child. Got to put on some kind of costume and go around the neighborhood getting candy. And I think it started off, I started when I was young enough to where we'd get in a car and then go somewhere. And then the parent would go along the car not far away so they could watch their kid. Like I was just small enough, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't younger than 6 though when I had Halloween. I wasn't that young, but I was young.
Mm.
And my mom used to make our costumes, which was the best kind of costumes. Well, I take it back. You can have someone make you a costume, which is special, right? But if it's a really bad costume, it's not fun.
Yeah.
Fortunately, she was good at making costumes. I can't remember any specifically, but she made some good costumes. Anyway, then at some point, Halloween became, you can go out on your own. You can... And then if you have a group of friends to go, that's cool. But Halloween was awesome. I used to love just collecting candy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny reading about this in memes later as an adult, but apparently this was normal because it happened with my dad. Or the parents, I guess, is the meme. They go through your candy, they take all the good ones, and they give you your candy back. It's like a tax. But it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
So that was pretty normal. Yeah, I used to eat till I got sick, and that was fun. And one time I went to some Halloween type of a party as a kid, if that counts at all.
Mm.
And this most recent Halloween, I wore my costume and I rode the motorcycle around town. I was sitting on my driveway with a bowl of candy I had because I was going to give out candy because I'm an adult. And I was sitting there in my costume for 2 minutes. I was like, this is boring. So I got on my bike around my neighborhood, my motorcycle, and if I saw kids out trick-or-treating, I rode up to them and I handed them the bowl and like, take some candy.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for like an hour. And that was really fun because I get to be on a bike and kids are like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
But just sitting there in this huge costume, it was pretty sad.
It was your Venator costume?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So anyway, I think what's going to end up happening now is I'm going to start going out and untrick-or-treating.
Yeah, finding kids to give candy to.
Yeah. But that's, I think, all my stories for Halloween.
I have a lot of stories for Halloween.
Good.
Here's the most interesting one, and I think this is the one that would answer that our fans' question, because I think the fans' question was something like, "I would like to see how you guys celebrated Halloween, given your background growing up," or something like that. Mm. And we did not celebrate Halloween when I was a kid. We celebrated Reformation Day. Mm-hmm. You familiar with Reformation Day?
I'm familiar with the good Christian, unevel, wicked witch version of Halloween, which
yeah.
I definitely had a lot of that temperament coming into my holiday. It wasn't purely spooky stuff. It was just pumpkins and leaves. That's what Halloween is.
Pumpkins and leaves.
Yeah, they fall. They removed all the creepy stuff. That's what my Halloween was as a kid. But yours sounded more severe.
Well, so I think it was on Halloween Day. It was October 31st in like 1400 or something. That was the day that Martin Luther nailed the 95 Thesis to the door of, I can't remember which chapel.
Yeah.
But it was like the start of the Lutheran Church, more or less. Mm-hmm. It was like the Catholic Church had a monopoly on all information, and they were the only ones who could read the Bible in Latin. And so they told people that Bible said all this stuff that it didn't say at all. And so they just had this monopoly over people's lives, and they were selling not indulgences. Was it indulgences? But
Who was selling what? The church?
The church was selling
indoctrination. Is that what we're looking for?
No, I think that there were it was actually a slip of paper. I think they're called indulgences. You just murder me if I'm wrong. But what essentially this piece of paper said is, "Oh, you sinned. This paper will allow you to go to heaven still. This will indulge your desire to go sin." And you could buy indulgences before you did the sin.
Yep.
It was like the church was selling salvation.
Yeah.
It was really dirty and evil, but people didn't know better. And when people are guilted into something like, you've been evil and you know it, you need to buy indulgences to feel saved. They'll do it. So the church was just like this money-making machine selling people salvation. That was just BS. And Martin Luther was one of the he knew Latin. He knew how to read. He knew how to read the Bible, and he was like, the Bible doesn't say anything about this. And so he put up this 95 theses, and I can't remember them anymore. But anyway, all that to say, a bunch of stuff happened. The church tried to kill him a bunch after that because he was the one, opening people's eyes to this. I think he was the first one to translate the Bible into what the language the people could read, the Lutheran Bible. And he gave it, anyway, he started distributing it. That was when it was close to the time that the printing press got made. And so it was like kind of a miracle that happened, and he did all that work for it. He's one of the guys. There's another man who did a lot of work to get the Bible distributed too. But anyway, I think that happened on October 31st, the 95 Theses Day. And so what we did is we celebrated Reformation Day, and it started as this thing when we were really young because my parents didn't like witches and zombies and all the Halloween stuff. They thought it wasn't. It's like, well, if there's cool stuff that happened on that day, we should celebrate that instead. And there was cool stuff that happened on the day because that happened. And they wanted it to be like the fun thing with the candy and everything involved and stuff. And so they did this cool thing to represent sort of that story in a narrative way where they supplied, our first year we did it with 2 families. There was 2 of us homeschool families. There were 6 kids total. And they gave us backpacks. And then the parents had set up all these stations with these games that we play that were like, some of them were history games and some of them were like acted out games, and some of them, they were just fun. It was just fun. It was like a fun party night. But then after you did the game, they would give you what you thought was a huge bag of candy, and they'd just stuff it in your backpack, and they'd say, don't open it because you can only open it later. And they were like heavy, and it was like, this doesn't seem like it'd all be candy, but they kept giving us these bags in this backpack that we'd have to carry. By the end of the night, our backpacks are super heavy. We're like, oh my goodness, this is too much candy. Like, this can't be candy is what we were thinking. But it turned out they wanted to give us a narrative sense of like incurring burden and sin and things like that. They had us open it up at the end, and all these bags were not candy. Were like junk and trash and rocks.
I was gonna say,
stuff.
Did they Charlie Brown you and just gave you rocks for Halloween?
More or less, yeah. Or like crab apples, like big, just gross stuff. But they wanted to represent that, like, even though you're doing all these good things, you're still a sinner, and like buying indulgences that doesn't gonna save you. But it was like this big narrative thing, and at the end they gave us a big bowl of candy each. The first year, one of the games was that there was like a gummy worm eating contest. And I won, but at a very large cost. I just was eating like a huge plate of gummy worms. I got very sick, but I won what they called the Wormy Award. And it was like this big clay worm that just spiraled up. And I kept that thing for years. It ended up breaking before I got rid of it. But I won the Wormy Award by eating like probably hundreds of gummy worms. I ate so many gummy worms. They had a timer for like 2 minutes. It was way too long of a timer to just be eating gummy worms. Several of the kids like tapped out like, no, I'm going to get sick. But I was like, I'm going to win this award. And I did. Anyway, so that was the first year. And other years, what was crazy is that we enjoyed that so much that other families got involved. And after about 6 years of doing that, we had like 20 to 30 families, it felt like, doing that. And we'd have to rent out a church to do it. And they did these themes. It was so, like, the moms and dads worked really hard to organize this huge thing eventually, because there's just all these families that would come and celebrate Reformation Day. We had one year where they pretended like we were doing this world tour, and they do similar things. But like I remember there was one time they simulated a plane ride at the church. They had like customs, and so they set up a little booth, and then we all had to dress up in our traveling clothes, and we were each different characters, and so they had like customs, and they had like one of the moms, with like a wand, and she'd, oh, what is this? And like she'd like take off, it's metal, you can't go on the plane. And she'd send us away, and then we can get on after we went through customs again. And then we get to the plane, and it was just one of the rooms. They had all these chairs set up. Then the other moms would be dressed as stewardesses and come back. Can I get you any snacks, darling? It was so fun. They worked so hard to make it like this big fun thing, but it always ended with some sort of lesson. And sometimes we'd reenact things from that time period with Martin Luther and the 95 Theses. And I remember one time I was Martin Luther and I got to walk up and nail the 95 Theses, which is like Velcro to the wall. And I'd pretend I'd put it up and, and put it up there.